go home.
Surely. I want to talk about communication.
Yes.
What is this government? We have Itumbi that is apparently chairing meetings. Wandai is giggling around there. And we have the guy shouting behind Wandai telling him, with all due respect. With all due respect, you know. And then Ruto just into the country and suddenly he's fixing these issues and he comes out with these guys and all these guys are shouting tuta in a press conference. Yeah.
I think first of all, Jagero, we have to understand that public service is about responsiveness and availability. So when you end up and Safina Party, for instance, forms government, the person who people know most might end up being Joachim. And the person that people can reach most ends up being the same Joachim. Therefore, it is highly likely that in that government, when people have a problem of whatever magnitude and whatever nature, they are going to reach out to the person who is more reachable. Now, that is the place that Dennis Itumbi actually is. That's why I do not fault Dennis Itumbi. Why? Because you are a gentleman who is in government, and there is a crisis that is befalling the country, and those people have reached out to you as a responsible public servant who has the interests of the state. You must be able to try and start offering a solution. And I think that's exactly what Dennis Itumbi does. And that does not make him wrong.
Okay.
The assumption that he chaired the meeting is also meant to put him in bad light. Because just because there was a video and he was speaking does not make him chair of the meeting.
Okay.
Because this is just...
So we don't know who chaired the meeting.
We don't know who chaired the meeting, and if we want to be fair to ourselves, we know that definitely it would not be Itumbi when cabinet secretaries were there. And we can't fault a man for calling cabinet secretaries to solve a problem. If anything, they were supposed to be called by somebody if they were not being responsive. Because it's about responsiveness. So if you're not being responsive, even your clerk will call you out to be responsive. So I do not fault him to that extent. But the people that I would fault in the problem of the fuel that we had is number one, Opio Wandai. Because Opio Wandai has a problem understanding crisis communication.
Doesn't know.
Yeah? Because in crisis, when you are faced with a crisis, Jagero, the first person you must look for is a communicator. A person who is a communication specialist to first of all help you frame messaging. Because in times of crisis, it's not about facts. Facts alone do not help, and that's why Mbadi was spewing facts, but he was still getting backlash. But if you check inside what he was saying, they are actually the facts. Because you cannot argue with the fact that there is actually a war. That is a fact. But you see, in times of a crisis, you need to know how to say it. Now, Opio Wandai gets it even worse because he does not inspire public confidence even by demeanor alone. Because when you are meeting, you are facing people in times of a crisis, your demeanor speaks a lot.
Yes.
So he comes looking lackluster, looking like he does not understand what's happening, looking rained on.
So
and that is why...
rained on.
Yeah, and that's why, Jagero, it was very, very easy for that gentleman to say whatever he said. Because they lacked authority in that room. They would not feel the atmosphere. You know, there's an atmosphere of power.
Yeah. They didn't see it.
So that atmosphere was
like... One does not keep eye contact.
Yeah? And that's why... You look at him, Jagero. And that's why you look at the CS of transport. He's least blamed, mostly because he's least available. So sometimes also the blame goes to the person who is highly visible, who is highly available. Now, this guy, Wandai, look at even his interview with Yvonne Okwara. How many times did you see him look straight?
It doesn't.
At both the camera and Yvonne. When you speak like that, people rarely want to believe what you want to say. People want people who are bold, they can have the confidence in what they are saying. That's why when Joachim spews his propaganda here, there are people who are going to believe it just because of the presentation. So, Nani fails...
He's calling what I say propaganda.
So, Opio Wandai.
This person is discrediting what I say.
Opio Wandai.
But you also say it's the same with them.
Exactly. So Opio Wandai fails a lot on that. And now, Jagero, that is the gap that the president comes and fills in very heavily. Because the president comes, and first of all, he is able to inspire confidence both in the sector and in the public, the president. So when he comes out to speak about this issue, first of all, he speaks them with confidence, with a tone of reassurance, and then he meets the demands and the wishes of the publics, of the transport people, more than they would have bargained for, because they went there with a fuel problem. But they came out with about 4 things. They came out with a banking solution. They came out with an insurance.
That's what Ruto was telling
Yeah, they came out with an insurance solution. They came up with what is this that
The graffiti thing.
the graffiti thing. They came up with that solution as well. They came up
What,
with
what about graffiti?
there was
a ban
There was a
on
ban
graffiti.
on graffiti.
Watu
in
wachore
Tatis.
mavitu kwa matatu.
Yeah,
Eh,
they came.
Ile mademoni wanachora kwa
Yes, they come up with that.
They were
win.
told they can chora now.
They
they
also
can
they
chora.
can go ahead. They also come out with the win that says, you know what? You see, there's this aspect of guys with loans kuchotwa kila saa with the with the
banks.
the banks and whatever. Those guys who go to collect those cars. What is their name?
Auctioneers.
The auctioneers.
Yes.
They come out with a solution about how we are going to deal with auctioneers.
Yeah.
And they also come out with, with a promise that, you know what, the first 100,000 vehicles that are electric can be able to be imported. There is one thing there.
The first?
100,000 vehicles that are electric can be imported duty-free. Those are almost 5 wins that these guys did not expect. And that's what you do when you are dealing with a crisis.
Exactly.
There is something that you don't realize there, Jagero. The president does not reduce the price of fuel. But everyone is very happy. Because crisis sometimes is just not about the problem that is being pointed at. It's about navigating
Can cover
it.
other problems.
It's
that
about
have covered
navigating
that
it, because
dust and
sometimes
bring them to the table.
not necessarily. It is about, because sometimes it's about meeting the facts. So when you confront the facts on fuel, and these guys have, I'm sure when they go to that state house, they confronted the facts and also saw reason. And then he introduces these other things. That is why it's called a negotiation. And the president does that very well. What I totally disagree with is that when the president does that very well, we say that those who did not do it very well did not do it well because they were not allowed to do that. No, they were just incompetent. Because we can't be able to say...
You are saying that everything that the president put on the table, they could as well have put
They
on
could
the
have put on the table. We can't say, Jagero, that the president did not make Wandai, that it was because of the president. That's why Wandai did not have a solution. We can't be able to start saying that the president... We can't reduce Opio's problems to a community and say, you know, it is this guy is just here to represent the community. But you see, okay, fine, but you are here. And you're having a meeting with these guys, and the press is here. How does the president from Kazakhstan block your brain from functioning to be able to provide a solution to these people?
Yeah.
So there, it is just a question of we must meet incompetence in its face. We must not be able to dress it in some fashion. And that's why we have lessons that we must learn, Jagero. The lessons that Joachim was speaking about. That what did Mbadi say when he was outside government? What did Opio and I say when he was outside government? So that politicians must learn to understand that you don't just push the country to the cliff because you don't have the burden of responsibility.
Yeah.
Because when they didn't have the burden of responsibility, they always made it look like the ones in the office are clueless. The same Opio and I that we are castigating today was the one who kept telling us that who advises this government. Those are words that he said. The same Mbadi kept telling us that no, fuel prices cannot be that. There is a solution. He was actually saying the things Ndindi is saying today.
Yeah.
So it teaches politicians and leaders that, you know what, don't just hate governments and push countries to the cliff because of your own political expediency. Sometimes we must get to a place where the country becomes bigger than all of us and we can sit down and understand that this is actually a crisis. It is the reason why Raila Odinga did not take advantage of COVID. Raila Odinga did not come out and start saying that COVID is here because of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
No, but
he was able to say that this is a crisis that we have as a country. Now, these guys were used to saying things against the people just because they are in office. Now, the crisis is at their doorstep. And you looked at the demeanor that Opio and I had. I asked myself, what if Opio was president during the Gen Z uprising? If that is the demeanor that he had with a one-day protest on fuel. So
in fact, Mundalo, I look at when Opio